Have you ever felt like you are trapped in a prison of your own thoughts? Do you often find yourself caught in patterns of anxiety, worried and self-doubt, wondering how to escape this constant cycle? Do you long for true freedom, a liberation from the relentless chatter of your mind, and the mental and emotional chains that seem to hold you back from living your fullest life? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are going to explore a powerful and transformative question: how to break the chains of the mind and achieve true liberation. At the heart of this exploration are two key insights. First, understanding the nature of the mind and how it creates these chains that bind us, and second, learning how we can free ourselves from these chains through mindfulness, self-awareness, and the cultivation of inner peace. True liberation is not about escaping reality, but rather about transforming the way we relate to our thoughts and emotions. It's about living with greater freedom and joy, regardless of external circumstances. To begin, let's first look at the nature of the mind. The mind is an incredibly powerful tool, capable of both creating and solving problems. It's responsible for our thoughts, our emotions, our perceptions of the world, and how we navigate life. But when the mind is not understood or managed, it can also become a source of suffering. Much of the suffering we experience in life comes from the way we think and the mental patterns we engage in. Think for a moment about how much time we spend inside our minds. How many hours do we spend worrying about the future, regretting the past, or replaying old conversations and experiences in our heads? These mental habits are not just fleeting thoughts, they are powerful forces that shape our emotions, our actions, and our overall experience of life. When we allow these thought patterns to dominate our minds, they can easily become chains that bind us, limiting our potential and keeping us from experiencing peace and happiness. One of the most fundamental ways in which the mind creates these chains is through attachment. We attach ourselves to our thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions, believing them to be the truth. We identify with our thoughts, allowing them to shape our sense of self. For example, if we have the thought, "I am not good enough," we begin to believe that this thought is true, and it shapes how we see ourselves and how we interact with the world. These thoughts, whether positive or negative, create a mental framework that governs our experience. They become our reality, and we are often unaware of how much control they have over us. To break the chains of the mind, we must first become aware of the mental patterns that keep us trapped. Awareness is the first step toward liberation. When we become aware of our thoughts and emotions, we begin to see them for what they truly are: temporary, ever-changing, and not necessarily reflective of our true nature. We learn to observe our thoughts without getting caught up in them, without identifying with them. This is the essence of mindfulness, the practice of observing our thoughts without judgment or attachment. Mindfulness is a powerful tool for breaking free from the chains of the mind. When we practice mindfulness, we create space between ourselves and our thoughts. Instead of being consumed by our thoughts, we step back and observe them from a place of awareness. We realize that we are not our thoughts, we are the conscious awareness that observes them. This understanding is liberating because it allows us to detach from the mental patterns that limit us. Imagine a moment when you feel anxious or stressed. Instead of getting lost in the swirl of thoughts, worrying about the future, regretting the past, or fearing the unknown, mindfulness allows you to step outside of these thoughts. You can simply observe them. There is anxiety, there is worry, but I am not these feelings. I am the one who observes them. This shift in perspective is powerful because it allows us to stop identifying with our thoughts and instead approach them with a sense of detachment and calm. Another key aspect of breaking the chains of the mind is learning to let go of attachment. Attachment is the mental habit of holding on to certain thoughts, beliefs, or emotions, and believing that they define us. We become attached to the idea that we are the sum of our past experiences, our successes, our failures, or our emotions. We attach ourselves to our ego, our sense of self, and believe that this is who we are, but the truth is, our ego is a construct of the mind, and it is not our true essence. Our true nature is beyond the ego, beyond the thoughts and emotions that we identify with. When we let go of attachment, we free ourselves from the chains that bind us. We begin to experience life as it is, without the filter of ego or the constant need to control. Letting go of attachment does not mean giving up or becoming indifferent. It means releasing the need to cling to things that are fleeting or outside of our control. It means embracing life with openness and acceptance, knowing that we do not need to hold on to anything to be happy or whole. This practice of letting go is especially important in our relationships with others. How often do we become attached to people, to their approval, or to the way they treat us? We may tie our sense of worth to how others see us or how they respond to us. But when we attach our happiness to other people, we set ourselves up for disappointment. People are not constant, they change, they grow, and they sometimes move in directions we cannot predict. By letting go of attachment to others, we free ourselves to love more deeply and authentically, without needing anything in return. Letting go of attachment also means letting go of the need to control. The mind craves control. It wants to plan, predict, and manipulate every situation. But control is an illusion. We cannot control the future, nor can we control how others think or act. When we try to control everything around us, we create stress, anxiety, and frustration. True liberation comes when we let go of the need to control, when we accept that we cannot dictate every outcome. Instead of control, we can cultivate trust in the process of life, trust in ourselves, and trust in the wisdom of the universe. Trust allows us to step into the flow of life, without constantly trying to force things to happen. When we trust, we create a sense of peace and acceptance, knowing that things will unfold as they are meant to. This trust is the antidote to the fear that the mind creates, and it helps us to break free from the mental chains that hold us back. Another essential part of breaking the chains of the mind is compassion for ourselves and for others. When we are trapped in the chains of the mind, we often become critical of ourselves and others. We judge our thoughts, our actions, and our emotions, believing that they are wrong or unworthy. This self-criticism only strengthens the chains of the mind, keeping us stuck in a cycle of self-doubt and shame. But when we practice compassion, we soften the grip of the mind. Compassion allows us to treat ourselves with kindness and understanding, rather than with judgment. Compassion also helps us to release attachment to the expectations we have of others. When we stop expecting others to behave in a certain way, we stop using them as a source of validation for our own happiness. Instead, we can accept them for who they are, without the need to control or change them. This compassion creates a space for true connection and mutual understanding, free from the chains of expectation and judgment. True liberation from the mind comes when we recognize that the mind is not the enemy. The mind is simply a tool, an instrument through which we perceive the world. It is not inherently good or bad, but it becomes problematic when we become attached to it, when we identify with it. The mind, when not understood, can create a prison. But when we learn to observe it, to detach from it, and to allow it to be as it is, we experience freedom. So, how do we achieve this freedom? It comes through practice, through mindfulness, letting go of attachment, cultivating trust and compassion, and developing self-awareness. It is a gradual process, one that requires patience, discipline, and a willingness to face the challenges that arise along the way, but the rewards are worth it. The freedom that comes from breaking the chains of the mind is a freedom that allows us to live fully, authentically, and in harmony with the world around us. As we continue to explore how to break the chains of the mind and achieve true liberation, It's important to delve deeper into one of the most crucial aspects of this journey, understanding the nature of the ego. The ego is a central concept in our mental landscape, and it is often the driving force behind the mind's chains. We live much of our lives from the perspective of the ego, believing that we are separate from the world around us, defined by our thoughts, achievements, and personal experiences. However, the ego, as powerful as it may seem, is ultimately an illusion, a construct of the mind. The ego thrives on separation. It tells us that we are distinct from others, that we are defined by our accomplishments or failures, and that our worth is tied to external validation. It constantly compares, contrasts, and judges, creating divisions between us and them, between good and bad, and between right and wrong. The ego fuels our desires, fears, and attachments, leading us into a never-ending cycle of seeking validation, approval, and control. It can even cause us to identify with our struggles, believing that our pain and suffering are integral parts of who we are. In truth, the ego is not our true self. It is a temporary identity, shaped by our thoughts, experiences, and external influences. It is not the essence of who we are, it is a mask that we wear, a story we tell ourselves to make sense of the world. And while the ego may serve a purpose in helping us navigate our day-to-day lives, it also keeps us trapped in the cycle of suffering, because it is constantly seeking external validation, clinging to past identities, and resisting change. To break free from the chains of the mind, we must begin to disidentify from the ego. This does not mean rejecting or denying the ego's existence, but rather recognizing it for what it is, a construct of the mind that does not define our true essence. When we step outside of the ego, we open ourselves to a deeper understanding of who we really are. We begin to see that our true nature is not defined by our thoughts, emotions, or experiences. Our true essence is the awareness behind these things, the awareness that observes the thoughts and feelings without being consumed by them. One of the most effective ways to disidentify from the ego is through the practice of self-inquiry. Self-inquiry is the process of asking ourselves deep, existential questions about who we really are. Rather than identifying with the thoughts and emotions that arise in our minds, we ask, who am I beyond my thoughts? Who am I beyond my emotions? What remains when all the labels and identities are stripped away? This practice helps us see through the illusion of the ego and recognize that we are not our thoughts, not our emotions, and not our past experiences. We are the awareness that observes them. Self-inquiry can be challenging, as the ego will resist any attempt to dissolve it. The ego thrives on attachment, identification, and control. So when we begin to question its existence, it will create resistance and doubt. It will try to convince us that we are nothing without it. However, it is precisely in this resistance that we find the key to liberation. By observing the ego's attempts to maintain its grip, we begin to see its true nature, a transient, ever-changing phenomenon that has no inherent existence. Another powerful way to break the chains of the ego is to embrace humility. The ego often leads us to believe that we are superior or inferior to others. It creates a sense of competition and comparison, causing us to constantly measure ourselves against those around us. But true liberation comes when we let go of these comparisons and embrace the humility that arises from recognizing our shared humanity. Humility allows us to see that we are not separate from others, but part of a vast, interconnected web of life. It helps us break down the walls that the ego creates between me and you, and instead, we begin to experience the oneness of all beings. Humility is not about self-deprecation or putting ourselves down. It is about recognizing that we are not better or worse than anyone else. It is about embracing our imperfections, our flaws, and our humanity with grace and acceptance. When we let go of the need to be superior or inferior, we experience a deep sense of peace and connection with others. Humility opens our hearts and minds, allowing us to live with greater compassion and understanding. Letting go of control is another essential step in breaking the chains of the ego. The ego thrives on control. It wants to manipulate, dictate, and impose its will on the world. It believes that by controlling everything around us, we can create a sense of safety and security. But the truth is that control is an illusion. We cannot control the future, nor can we control the actions of others. The more we try to control, the more we experience anxiety, stress, and frustration. True freedom comes when we let go of the need to control and instead embrace the flow of life. Letting go of control means trusting in the process of life, trusting that things will unfold as they are meant to, even if we don't understand the bigger picture. It means accepting that we cannot predict or control every outcome, but we can control how we respond to whatever comes our way. By letting go of the need to control, we create space for true peace and freedom to rise. We stop fighting against the current of life and instead flow with it, knowing that we are exactly where we need to be. Meditation is an invaluable practice in this journey toward liberation. Meditation helps us quiet the mind and turn our attention inward, allowing us to observe our thoughts and emotions with greater clarity and detachment. Through meditation, we cultivate the ability to step back from the mind and see it for what it truly is, an ever-changing stream of thoughts and sensations. Meditation allows us to witness the rise and fall of thoughts without getting caught up in them. It helps us realize that we are not our thoughts, but the awareness that observes them. In meditation, we also develop inner stillness, a space of peace and presence that exists beyond the noise of the mind. This stillness is always available to us, even when the mind is active. By practicing meditation regularly, we learn to access this stillness in our daily lives, regardless of external circumstances. When we are able to tap into this inner stillness, we experience true liberation. We no longer feel controlled by our thoughts, emotions, or the world around us. We are able to live from a place of calm and clarity, grounded in the present moment. Another important aspect of breaking the chains of the ego is embracing impermanence. The ego is constantly attached to the idea of permanence. It wants things to stay the same. It wants to hold on to people, experiences, and identities that it believes define it. But the truth is, everything in life is impermanent. People change, circumstances change, and even our sense of self changes over time. When we embrace the impermanence of all things, we release our attachment to the ego and open ourselves to the beauty of life's ever-changing nature. By accepting impermanence, we stop clinging to the idea of a fixed self. We stop resisting the changes that occur in our lives, and instead, we learn to flow with them. This acceptance of impermanence helps us experience life more fully. We appreciate each moment for what it is, knowing that it will never come again. And in doing so, we create space for true freedom and joy to rise. The journey to breaking the chains of the mind and achieving true liberation is not a quick fix. It is a lifelong process of self-discovery, letting go, and embracing the present moment. It requires courage, patience, and a willingness to face the discomfort that comes with change. But as we continue on this path, we realize that true liberation does not come from the mind, it comes from the heart. It comes from our ability to detach from the ego, embrace our true essence, and live fully in the present moment. I want to hear from you. How has the ego influenced your life, and what practices have helped you break free from its grip? How have you experienced true liberation, and what does it mean for you to live without the chains of the mind? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Let's continue this conversation and support each other on the journey toward true freedom. Thank you for watching this video.